What happens when two neighbors as tightly connected as the US and Canada suddenly face a 35% tariff threat on vehicles? It could shake up an industry worth over $43 billion in Canadian auto exports. Did you know auto parts often cross the border 5 to 8 times before final assembly? Now, think that the process is interrupted. Could this mean higher prices for your next car or even impact the stock market? Already reacting with NASDAQ and S&P futures dropping 0.4%. Where do you stand? Protective tariffs or open trade? If questions like these interest you, hit subscribe now for more real-world breakdowns you can use. What would you do if these changes hit your wallet? Let's dive into the big news shaking up the auto industry this week. On July 10, 2025, President Donald Trump sent a letter to Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. In it, Trump announced that starting August 1, 2025, the U.S. will impose a 35% tariff on all Canadian products entering the U.S. That's a sharp jump from the 25% tariff first set in March. Why now? Trump cites Canada's failure to curb fentanyl trafficking, claiming it's harming U.S. national security. Do you think such steep tariffs are the right tool for tackling this issue? What would you do if you were in Prime Minister Carney's shoes? Trump warned that if Canada increases its tariffs, he'll add that amount on top of the 35% duty. According to Trump, goods transshipped to avoid the tariff will also face the full duty. It's not just about fentanyl. Trump emphasized Canada's trade barriers like 400% tariffs on U.S. dairy. Do these trade disputes seem fair, or are they going too far? So, how did Canada respond to this tariff escalation? Prime Minister Mark Carney fired back firmly. Hours before Trump's letter, Carney posted on X with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, stating, "The world is turning to reliable economic partners like Canada." Canada is now working on closer ties with the European Union and the UK, instead of relying solely on the US. What do you think? Is diversifying trade partners the smartest move here? Could that help buffer Canada from US pressures? Canada already put 25% auto tariffs on US-produced vehicles, but carefully excluded auto parts to avoid fully disrupting the supply chain. According to Flavio Volpe of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, keep parts out of this for now. Makes sense, right? Carney said these tariffs are carefully calibrated and targeted. Do you think that approach strikes the right balance, or should Canada hit back harder? Canada's government projects its counter tariffs could raise 8 billion Canadian dollars to support local industries. Would that offset the damage done by US tariffs? The heart of the matter is the auto industry. Canada's market is smaller, selling around 2 million light-duty vehicles annually versus 16 million in the US. Canada exported $43.82 billion in vehicles while importing $35.49 billion last year. That's a huge trade relationship. Trump's tariffs will cover 46% of U.S. vehicle sales, since those vehicles aren't assembled in the U.S. How do you think this affects American car buyers? Would you pay more for a vehicle if it meant protecting U.S. jobs? Major automakers like GM, Ford, and Stellantis say their North American vehicles comply with the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. And get this, auto parts can cross the border 5 to 8 times before final assembly. That's wild, right? Could these tariffs disrupt that tightly woven supply chain? Industry experts like François-Philippe Champagne say Canada will protect its automakers. Do you believe it's possible to shield the industry from such sweeping policy changes? Let's talk money. Wall Street and global markets are already feeling the heat. After Trump's announcement, NASDAQ and S&P 500 futures fell about 0.4%. The euro slipped 0.2%. while the US dollar gained 0.3% against the Canadian dollar. Joseph Capurso from Commonwealth Bank of Australia noted that the 35% tariff wasn't as bad as feared because many imports are exempt under USMCA. But there's still a lot of uncertainty. Do you follow stock markets closely? How do you think this trade tension will affect everyday investors? Earlier in the week,
Effect on August 1st. Tariffs go into
Trump delayed tariff deadlines to August 1st for many countries, but now he's ramping up again. Trump even floated blanket 15 to 20% tariffs globally. Would that stabilize or destabilize markets in your opinion? What's striking is Trump's statement: all remaining countries are going to pay. Investors seem split. Some think Trump will back down, while others fear serious economic disruption. Where do you stand? Calm or concerned? And if you invest, are you making any changes to your portfolio because of these tariffs? Enjoying the content? Tap that subscribe button so you never miss what's next. This isn't the first time trade tensions have flared up between the US and Canada. Back in 2018, Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Canadian steel and 10% on aluminum under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, citing national security. Do you remember that dispute? It escalated quickly, with Canada retaliating on $12.6 billion in US goods, everything from ketchup to lawnmowers. Does it surprise you how deeply politics and trade can intertwine? The two countries eventually signed the USMCA in 2018, replacing NAFTA, but even that hasn't stopped fresh disputes. Historically, US-Canada trade evolved from early protectionism to liberalization, marked by deals like the 1965 Auto Pact and 1989's Canada-US Free Trade Agreement. Those agreements spurred growth, but disputes over softwood lumber and dairy lingered. Which approach do you think works better? Open trade or protective tariffs? And with trade wars now back in focus, do you think North America can keep its industries as integrated as before? Trump justifies these tariffs on national security grounds, highlighting not just fentanyl but also trade deficits and border security. He says, President Trump will never stop standing up for the safety of the American people. The U.S. has already secured the extradition of 29 cartel bosses and reduced illegal crossings by 96% from the Biden-Harris administration's peak. Do you agree that national security should influence trade policy this much? Where do you think the balance should lie? Canada filed a World Trade Organization dispute on Monday, arguing Trump's tariffs are unjustified, unwarranted, and misguided. Canada's light-duty vehicle production hit 1.54 million in 2024, up from 1.1 million in 2021, though still down 47% from its 2000 peak. What's your take? Are these stats proof of a struggling industry or signs of resilience? Carney emphasized supporting workers and securing investment with a remission framework. Can such frameworks help in the face of heavy U.S. tariffs? And if national security continues driving trade, how might smaller countries protect themselves? Canada is actively diversifying its trade portfolio. Between May 2024 and May 2025, Canadian exports to the U.S. dropped 10 percentage points to 68% of total exports. Canada is now shipping more gold, petroleum, and pharmaceuticals to places like the UK, EU, Australia, and Indonesia. Sounds smart, but experts like Stuart Bergman warn there are limits to how much Canada can replace U.S. business. What do you think? Is Canada truly building a sustainable alternative? Canada's gold exports to the UK surged 473% by value in May, but Bergman notes such jumps often happen during crises. Does this mean these gains might be temporary? Canada's government stated, in the face of global trade challenges, Canada remains committed to expanding its global trade footprint. Yet, no single country accounts for even a tenth of Canadian exports besides the US. Do you believe Canada's economy can thrive without its southern neighbor? In an era where trade, politics, and national security collide, the US-Canada tariff standoff raises urgent questions about global economics and everyday costs. As two tightly linked economies brace for impact, both nations seek resilience through diversification and negotiation. Whether you support protective tariffs or open trade, these decisions affect us all. If you found this breakdown valuable, don't forget to subscribe and comment below. Your insights fuel thoughtful discussions on these real-world shifts.